Welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. I'm Tara, your host for this conversation on money mindset. There's a famous curse that may you live in interesting times. And my goodness, are we living in interesting times right now? Also on a large scale, but also just on a very human scale. So I'm going to share some behind the scenes shenanigans, for lack of a better word. This live stream was scheduled and ready to go like an hour ago. But for some reason in my building, all week I've been giving this notification that there were going to be two scheduled power outages in the neighboring building, and was given many assurances that the building I'm currently in is not going to be affected. The shortages were supposed to happen this morning and then during the lunch hour. So sure enough, I've been told many, many times it'll happen to the neighboring building, not yours. You don't need to worry. So imagine my surprise when I took the dog out for a walk this morning and the power went out in the first scheduled outage in both buildings. But even in that situation, the concierge he leapt to action. He's like, you know what? They weren't supposed to do it to both buildings. It was only supposed to be for one. Don't worry, I'm on it. And what that moment did was just trigger this morning of uncertainty. It was the uncertainty of, am I going to have power at noon? Am I going to have lights? I'm 47. I'm not going on a live stream without enough lighting. Am I going to have lights? Am I going to have an internet connection? What do I do with this live stream that was scheduled to go at noon? Do I trust that the concierge has everything under control and that the original plan that only one building was going to be without power would be the thing? And I got to tell you, it was that uncertainty. When you don't know what to expect, there are no right answers. Every decision had its own series of consequences and decisions after that. And really, that just, in terms of what to do with your money right now, I couldn't think of a better metaphor. It is just the uncertainty. How do you make decisions today when you don't know what the next 30 days, let alone 30 years looks like? So that's what we're going to be talking about today with my guest. Tanya Oliva is an accredited financial counselor of Canada, a personal finance educator, expert money coach, financial wellness advocate, and the founder of FinSmart. She is on a mission to create the FinSmart generation. When you are FinSmart, you are financially smart, savvy, and secure. Tanya works with clients across Canada to build financial knowledge, skills, and confidence. With these skills, you can manage your money, invest your money, and make informed financial decisions to build wealth so you can build your best life today and in the future. So please welcome to the stage, Tanya.
What an introduction. Thank you, Tara. Great to be here.
I mean, I've worked with, in my media career, I've worked with many, many finance experts. And I got to say, very few people will lean into and begin with the mindset piece, right? Because math, it's the same. It's this very predictable set of rules. 2 + 2 will always equal 4. You grow wealth by making more money than you spend, but it's what happens in here. It's how we react to situations that really move forward the needle. So how did you then get involved, and how did you get interested in money mindset?
Well, like you said, we're living in uncertain times, but it's not the only time we've had economic shocks. I mean, this is what I try to counsel my clients, is that the next economic or financial shock is just around the corner. Like you just have to look back on history. And so for me, my financial shock came in the dot-com crash, which was in the year 2000. And that's when we had one of the biggest meltdowns in history in terms of the stock market. So I don't know what's happening now with, this world, trade war, but it's almost usually an economic shock that will shock us into doing things differently. Right. And so this is what happened to me. And that's how I got in mind. So when I was going through the dot-com crash, I was also going through job loss and a divorce. And there's a lot of people who are listening who are probably going through the same thing right now. Divorce, job loss, and a major, economic shock happening. That also happened during the pandemic. So when that happened, Tara, I had to go inward because we know money doesn't grow on trees. We have to pay our bills. We have to have the essentials: shelter, food, transportation, clothing. So for me, when I was going through that meltdown, I had to relook at how I thought, felt, and behaved with money. And that's what, drew me into becoming what I call FinSmart, is really questioning how I'm making decisions, what's most important to me, what really matters in life. And I think a lot of people have to get back to that, brass tacks of what's most important to me,
Mhm.
and that starts infusing your mindset with, you know, what's really essential for you and your family.
Oh, I love that emphasis on how it's your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. It's not about what you've been taught or what you've been told, or even like what kind of wealth you're born into or not born into. Like the money itself is neutral. Where it goes haywire is when it does filter through the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. So let's maybe kind of, I want to, because I feel like there are nuances with each different one. So let's talk about thoughts. So in terms of the thoughts that direct our decisions, what are some kind of toxic or dangerous thoughts that many people have today around money and money decisions?
Well, first of all, a lot of our thoughts are infused by the culture we live in. You know, we
Mm,
live in a consumerist culture. So it's like, I have to have that latest iPhone. I have to have a bigger house. I have to, you know, get a new, you know, ski suit because my current one is 5 years old. You know, so a lot of our thoughts are infused by our culture and
mhm.
certainly by our socialization. And this is where you have to, again, question everything, because you know, more and more Canadians are feeling financially paralyzed. You know, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Their financial security is at risk if the interest rates go up. You know,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that are under threat. So what can we do? We can control how we think, feel, and behave with money, and that's where our mindset comes. You know, how can you frame that? So one of the things that I take my clients through is what I call the FinSmart pledge to
Mm,
financial independence.
mm.
Because, you know, Tara, so many of our decisions, and especially money, is made with our subconscious mind. Like,
Yeah.
we don't really question what we're doing. And, you know, I made the comparable that, you know, we know what it means to be physically healthy, right? Like, you're supposed to eat good food, exercise regularly, you know, manage your stress, all these things. And so if you go, you know, that movie, Supersize Me, and go and eat fast food, you know that's not going to be good for your health.
Mhm.
When you look at your financial health, which again is part of our overall health, you know, and people go out and consume things when they really can't afford it and then rack up credit card. I think the latest numbers is the average Canadian or average credit card balance is about $4,500.
Mm.
That's a lot of consumption that you cannot afford. And then when you tack that onto a 20% interest rate, that's kind of like eating fast food day in, day out, is by using your credit card day in, day out when you can't pay it off, because then
Mhm.
you're chained into debt. So we really have to question all of our financial decisions. Are they serving us?
Yeah.
Are they good for our financial health? And you know what is the, you know, reason for making this decision? You know,
Yeah.
really questioning your motivation, because we're using so much emotion.
Mhm.
So my goal is to get people into a rational frame of mind.
Mhm. And I love how you're talking about credit cards, because I think there are so many different forms of credit that we have access to, right? There's credit cards, there's lines of credits, there's mortgages, there's loans. There are so many ways to borrow money at a high interest. So for me, I think one of the earliest gifts that I gave to myself was, you know, when I was 18 and got my first credit card. I built the belief that this is the promise of future money. This isn't, I didn't, you know, the credit limit was not a gift of, oh, now I have at that, I think the credit limit was like $5,000. No, this is, I'm creating a gap. I now have to make this money to pay it off, which is really, really hard to remind yourself when, especially coming out in the pandemic, when interest rates were so low, they were practically at zero. It was so tempting because it did feel like this free money that we can have fun with and play with. But it is, yeah, that deeper understanding of what actually is this contract that I'm getting into in borrowing money and relying on credit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you have that perspective, because most people don't. You know,
Yeah.
I've got to make that money in order to spend that money. Most people think, well, I'll just, you know, I'll make it work. You know, they don't really think about all the other unexpected expenses that come into our lives. And this is why I'm not a fan of budgeting. You know,
Mhm.
I'm a real focus on cash flow management,
Yeah.
because, you know, no week, no month, no year is the same as the last. So how can you really budget? You know, suggesting you have so much available. You really have to look at cash flow, what's happening forward. And this is where I was able to become financially free, is by being very rational with how I make, my financial decisions, aligning with my, my values, my life goals, and the vision for how I want to live my life. And then managing my money in alignment with all of that. So, we have to, I think the first thing most people have to do is get into a rational mindset with money. And that's not easy because it's tied up in so many emotions. And for a lot of people, they have to look back at, how they were raised or what their culture was around money, and, continue with those things that serve you and change what doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
And that's why we go back and we look at our money story to find clues as to what motivates us today.
Yeah. And I think this is a great segue to move into beliefs, because there is a fine line between your thoughts and your beliefs. Your thoughts and your beliefs, they shape what you believe is right and is the right move for you. And I do actually think, you're talking about being practical. Practicality is very personal. What makes sense to you might not be the same thing to me, just because we're different, our ages are different. Where we are, I believe you're retired, and I'm still building a business. So our life circumstances are a little bit different. So that's also, comparing yourself to someone else, it's dangerous in the sense that you're now feeding into, keeping up with the Joneses. You might be spending more money just to have the appearance of affluence. But I think it's also dangerous in sharing advice amongst each other about what we think is right. My situation is different from your situation. So it's not about me telling you how to spend your money. It is that inner work. And I think beliefs, you nailed on the head. How we're raised by our parents and our growing up and our first encounters with money strongly influences our belief structure of what money, our relationship with money, really.
Yeah, it's huge. And, you're right that our financial circumstances are unique to us. That's why we have to get very personal with ourselves. And, that's where I start with, what is my cash flow? So I can really be clear, because numbers don't lie. So I look at, what's my income versus my expenses, what's left over. Because too many people are living beyond their means. So you got to be real. What are your resources available? That's unique to you. And then you look at your, your financial obligations. If it's for me, health, that's a value that I hold. So of course, I'm going to use my money towards things that make me healthy. And they also have other benefits that are important to me, like getting out and socializing, so pickleball, for example, I'm always going to spend money on that sport because I love it for the active and the social elements that it brings me. Yeah. So each person, again, based on your life stage, I also say that we are in, we have 5 different life stages. And people don't know this or may not be aware, but we have been gifted a new life stage in the 21st century. And this is, I know you're looking at, what is that?
So what are the 5? What is the new one?
Here's the thing. We are living longer and healthier lives. And so your health span is just as important as your lifespan, because you want to live healthy into old age, right? So that's why you have to make conscious decisions about how you look after your body. In terms of your financial health, we also have to think about the lifespan and the health span, because we're living longer. So you need the resources. So what has happened in the 21st century is that because of our longevity, people used to retire at 65 and go on the decline. Okay, well, I'm going to be around for another 5-10 years. Well, now at 65, you could be around for another 30 years. So really, you have this additional life stage from, say, 55 to 75, that you can be very healthy, vibrant person working fully. So that was not the case before. And, in today's world with AI, and let's be honest, ageism, 55, you can pretty much be redundant in a lot of careers. So you need to think about what's your next stage. So this is why I advocate for people to think about an encore career. And that's what I have. You say I'm retired. Well, retirement is not one big holiday. So we have to have purpose. We have to have impact in the world, and so that's why I became a financial counselor, because it gives me purpose, it gives me impact, and it gives me a little extra lifestyle money, which is always nice to have. And that's what, again, counseling people, what could you be doing later in life that you love doing that will give you some income and will give you a purpose, to get up in the morning. And that's, what a lot of people are looking for is an encore career or a way to generate income when pensions are not going to cut it.
Yeah. I think that's such a great example of the importance of just questioning the beliefs that we've been given. Because I think a lot of, what we've been told is, sound financial planning does factor in, well, when you turn 65, that's when you're going to retire and your earning power is over. I have this argument every year with my financial advisor. I'm like, that's not my plan. Like, as long as I have a brain and as long as I can make words happen, I plan on making money by being a communicator and a storyteller. So I think the last time we negotiated, I'm like, have me working until 70. Like, I want to be working until I'm 70. Then we can figure out what that looks like. But even then, my thought similar to you, where it's like, well, I'm going to do something. I have to be active. I don't know what the income is going to be, but just challenging that belief that somehow your earning power is done at a certain age that was decided like decades ago when lifespans were different, when health spans were different. So
Very
I think
much so.
It's important to turn inward and just question, like, how am I thinking about money? Where is this coming from? Does this align with how I want to think about money? Doing the same thing with beliefs. Feelings, I think, is a whole other ball of wax, because it's anxiety, it's scarcity, it's fear, and also like even toxic positivity, like turning a blind eye to changes that have been happening. I've actually been experiencing that in the entrepreneur space as a service provider working in marketing and publicity. I have been talking about a recession for a year and a half because that is how early marketing and ad budgets have been getting cut back.
Interesting.
And in small business circles, people have been quietly recently talking about like, oh yeah, last year was kind of tough. And I'm like, yeah, it was tough for everyone. Like, everyone was cutting back. So I think it's just that fear, wanting to project this image of success, and wanting to, and the fear of failure. That also, I think, is what is behind the feeling of paralysis. It's not just the practicality of, oh, you have a lot of debt racked up, but it's how you feel about the decisions that you made with your money.
Well, and we are in an age where there are a lot of generational differences. So even how we're having this conversation is going to be very different for, say, the Gen Z. And I've been hearing about this new trend called loud budgeting. Gen Zs are becoming much more aware and conscious about money because they're living in a different world. Like most of us, we may own homes or have that, bit of a nest egg already, whereas Gen Z are having a trouble just even getting afloat, getting launched from their parents' basements. So, this is where it's great to see. That's why I want to create this tribe of FinSmart, a generation of FinSmart people, because we have to all really rethink how we think, feel, and behave with money, because our environment has changed so drastically over the last 20 years.
What would you, so if someone is feeling, if they're watching this and they're feeling that anxiety, they're feeling that fear, how can they start working through that?
Well, I think the first thing is to first go, you're not alone. This is almost, like I said, we've been trying to keep up with our standard of living since the 70s. And that's first started with, women going back to the workforce, taking on consumer credit, having a second job, sharing your home. So you're not alone in the anxiety. I think, again, the most important thing is to ground yourself in your values. What is most important to you?
Yeah.
And, when I was going through the meltdown, I always say, everyone has issues and mine are minor compared to most standards. And I go back to that big picture, macro. Like, we do live in a safe country.
Yeah.
We have clean water, clean air, we have access to resources. There's many countries in the world that don't have what Canada has, just at a very base level. So I think grounding yourself in gratitude, what you do have, because we have more than so many people around the world. And then the second thing is really get clear on your values. Like, identify, just the 3 to 5 things that are most important to you. Maybe it's family, health, having a secure, home, and, being safe, right? Whatever those things are, like all those extra things like power, prestige, there's other motivations there. So I think grounding yourself in your values and then using those to really align with how you spend your money is going to give you a lot of self-satisfaction, because it is not about what other people are doing. You're living your life, right?
Yeah. And I love how you brought it down to values, and also just like the feeling of gratitude and the feeling of having, because I think this is a deeper way of engaging with your cash flow. It's very easy to trick yourself into thinking you're doing better than you really are. But at the same time, it's also easy to trick yourself into thinking you're doing worse than you are. So
Yes.
my approach to budgeting, like I've always felt like I'm good with money. I understand budgeting. I know how to do it. When I was working in network television, I know how to live on a biweekly salary. I know how to live in a budget when I know what the monthly income is coming in. But moving into entrepreneurship and building a business where money is inconsistent, that was a whole new level of understanding. So all the things that we're talking about in terms of reconnecting with your thoughts and your feelings and your beliefs, I've been working on that for the last 4 years, figuring out how to then be good with money while running a business. So some of the checks that I've done, so I do, I'm very on top of the cash flow, both for the business and for my personal life. But then in terms of, because I also the austerity and the scarcity mindset is also very damaging, especially if you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to build something from scratch. You're always on the brink of quitting. You're always on the brink of giving it up. So one thing I did about a year or so ago was just create the standard. So my value is I'm very intentional with how I spend my time and my money.
Yes.
So that's how I make decisions. Is this actually going to enrich what I'm doing right now? And will it help me reach my goal? So for the last year, I've just been looking at being very, very efficient and very, very strategic, especially with the marketing. Spending all kinds of time working on social media was not giving me the return, but networking, having conversations,
Yes.
and hearing on streams like this, that actually is moving the needle. So just knowing where my time and money can be directed. And another practice, so I read a couple months ago, there's a book called The Having. When you were talking about the gratitude practice, I highly recommend people read this book because it really reinforces what you're talking about. And that is just to appreciate what you currently have.
Yes.
And there's a practice where every day, every time you purchase something, it's just to have gratitude for the fact that even if it's a $5 coffee, I have $5 for a coffee. I have money to pay the bills. I have money to keep the lights on. The power outage was not because I missed a bill. The power outage was a miscommunication with the building in Toronto Hydro. So just like I want more, but what I have is wonderful. And I'm very grateful for it.
Well, you're an excellent role model because you hit on so many things that people need to adopt. This idea of being intentional, that's one of the first things that I promote when you want to become FinSmart is you need to be intentional. You need to be done. And that's where it gets back to that rational mind again, right?
Yeah.
Like detaching the emotional.
Yeah.
And if you can live in that space when it comes to financial decisions, you're going to feel much more secure because you're not using your emotions to drive. Emotions can't be controlled. You can control intentional decisions, right? And so I love that you're promoting this on your show because this is really, really important. And what's the easiest way to be intentional with your money is knowing what's most important to you, your values.
Yeah.
What are your personal goals? What are you trying to achieve? And then prioritizing that, right? Like you may not be able to do everything in the next, 6 months or 2 years. Yeah. And then thirdly, knowing what your life vision is. Like you said, you told your financial advisor, hey, I want to work well until I'm 70. Like I feel on fire. I'm motivated. I've got a great plan for myself. That's awesome. So you've got that life vision. So I encourage all those people out there to have a vision. What do you want the next 10, 15, 20 years to look like? And be very clear. And then use your money in alignment with that. I always say when you're FinSmart, you use your money in alignment with what's most important to you. It's not about austerity. Too many people are using their money for a lifestyle that really doesn't generate contentment. It just generates debt.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes. I was watching. I'm obsessed with the Kardashians, and there's a docuseries on Prime right now where they're talking about like the kind of the evolution of the brand, and there's a long section about how when the show first started. As a family, they were heavily leveraged. The home that they shot the first season in wasn't their home. They had rented it. all of their credit cards were maxed out. So I was like, oh, even the card, like it's the illusion. Credit cards are the illusion of wealth. They can create the illusion of
Absolutely. That's a really good mantra. Credit
yeah.
cards are the illusion of wealth. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think too, being intentional, because I'm also aware of the awareness of some people who are watching this. So I think for some people, if you are kind of on autopilot and you are giving into, the Instagram lifestyle, what the abundance that is so dominant in entertainment right now, where would you recommend we the first step is just maybe to kind of question, the values? Like if you're not totally in touch with your values, where would be a good place to start?
Well, you mean when you are looking at people who are there's like I use the difference between rich and wealthy.
Okay.
Rich people are those who have external displays of wealth, right? The fancy clothes, the travel, the homes, the cars, right? Externally displayed. But behind the scenes, most people are using debt to fund that lifestyle, or they are dependent on a high income. So as soon as that income ceases or goes down, their lifestyle crumbles.
Okay.
We want people to aspire to be wealthy. And wealthy is when you have income, passive income that funds your life, right? So it's like investing in assets that create income, whether that's real estate, investments, businesses, of course, and having the ability to reduce your trading your time for money. Because ultimately, when you think about making money, that is using your life energy. So if people were to think about, okay, so I spend, $1,000 on this new, iPhone, say, for example, how many hours, how many days do you actually work to make that $1,000? Some people that might be a week, 5 days of work or 10 hours of work. Is that worth you? So really questioning your life, how you're using your life energy, because that's what translates into money. And so my goal as to generate wealth is to buy back your time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We all have a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's where the true freedom comes, is, using your time in ways that you value. And that's why I love that you came back into intentionality around your time. And there's a great TED talk that talks about using your time, energy, and money. And we can maybe put a link in your show notes. I'll send it to you after. It's just a 10-minute talk. It uses profanity, so I won't say it here. But it's a great reminder that we are in control of how we use our time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
And if you be intentional, you'll live a more contentful life.
Yes. I'll add to that. Time is the only non-renewable resource that we have. Like it's gone in an instant. I could clearly talk about this with you all day. So I think, there is information out there on how to budget, how to invest, how to assess your risk. But what I loved about your approach is it really is what's going on in your mind, in your brain. All of these external factors that we sometimes go on autopilot. We don't question our thoughts. We don't question our feelings. We don't question our beliefs. But once you start questioning, like, where did this come from? Is this actually something that I believe, or is it something that someone else gave to me? That now gives you the feeling of control. It gives you autonomy. And once you get autonomy over your own mindset, now you can feel control. We can't control the world around us. I literally can't control when lights go on in my building. We can control our actions, right? We can control how we meet that situation. And that to me, that's a very powerful position to be in. So thank you.
And this is how, working with a financial counselor, you can go through, that process as identifying your money story, identifying your beliefs, and getting you back to a more, healthy relationship with money. That's really the power, is that you can change it. And that's what is, we can't always maybe change our physical health, but we can change our financial health through, intentional action.
Yeah. Oh, a worthwhile relationship for people. So where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about how you work with people? Where can that happen?
Finsmart.ca is my website. That's an easy one to remember, finsmart.ca. So you can catch me there. You can also catch me on Instagram at GetFinSmart, also on Facebook. But, like you, I'm not a big fan of spending time on social media, so I don't do a lot there. So I love having these conversations, Tara. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. But if anyone would like to connect with me, you can reach me through my website, and I offer a complimentary clarity call, take you through some of the programs I offer. And it's just a great investment in yourself, because you know what? We're never done. Our finances will be part of our lives right through and past our death. Estate planning is a real thing, because our finances live beyond our physical self. So it's really important to start now. It's never too late. We can always, implement some small baby steps that will really transform your relationship with money and also your financial health, which is something all of us need to take more conscious effort towards.
I mean, now we're just brainstorming, parts 2 and 3 on second act careers and estate planning.
There's so much to talk about, and that's why, just look at one little piece, whether it's, tracking your spending for the month. Looking at, your debt, is it something that, how can you, prioritize the pay down of debt, or, saving, how you're saving into investments, just baby steps. But, that's one of the first things to becoming FinSmart, is to having full awareness of your personal finances.
Yeah.
And I challenge people, to look at their expenses, to look at their net income, calculate their net worth, and just through that one exercise, they will get some clarity that will help them going forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The numbers don't judge. You're the one judging. Thank you so much, Tanya. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. And let's just all make a step today to becoming FinSmart.
I will. I'm going to go look at my numbers right now.
Okay.